kinds of things that we can impact as individuals. So I appreciate the conversation here. Kim, I'll throw it over to you for a question.
Okay, this is kind of a loaded question, but that's what we're here for, right? In 2020, Black Lives Matter protesters were arrested here in Lexington and around the country. Many of the charges were dropped around the country. Have the charges against Lexington's protesters been dropped?
Me?
Larry. Yes.
Okay, no, ma'am. The cases were not dropped against the protesters, and I'm not going to talk about all the cases because there's still 2 pending. But the protesters, we had thousands of people protesting in Fayette County over months, and there were many people who were not charged at all. There was a very small number of people out of all those thousands of people that were charged with protesting, and it all basically boiled down to one evening. Which was the issue that was right at the police station that was barricaded off by the police department because the protesters had been demonstrating for a long time, both peaceful people and people who were not being peaceful. And so this continued to build up over several weeks, and the police were dealing with an issue that the protesters would go in the middle of the street of Main Street, let's say, or Limestone Street, and start marching, and there'd be 200 or 300 people. Well, the police didn't come over there and stop that. They allowed it to occur, even though there was no permits made whatsoever or applied for ever. The protesters who were running this particular thing, and when I say protesters, I'm talking about people who were trying to get some kind of activity going with the police department, which would be negative to them, which would maybe arise into some kind of a striking or taunting or something. But the police would have to go and block traffic off. Let's say down Main Street, they would have to block the traffic off and route the traffic around Main Street over to side streets to tell the people coming both ways or one way that you can't do this because the crowd is protesting. And they didn't do anything about that. There was no arrest, nothing. Now, there were some arrests in that process where individuals in that group would go up to the cars of the people who were being blocked on Main Street in their cars and would get them out of the cars and punch them in the face, or get up on top of a police car and jump up and down on it. This is while protests were going on. Many of these people were not doing anything, but there were people who were doing a lot of things that were very dangerous and attacking people. So the police trying to figure out how to do that without going in and starting grabbing people and using billy clubs and mace or whatever you do, they said, we're not going to do that. And Mayor Gordon was part of that. We don't want this violence. We don't want this. So we'll let them march, but let's find out where they're going and what they're doing. And so this went on for many days. Finally, after fire was being put, or lit paper being put under the door of the police station, of the main door, after the glass of the police station was shattered, they started putting barricades around certain areas. And one was the front door of the police station. And so on this particular day, when most of the arrests occurred, the major of the protest got together in front of the courthouse and said, anybody who wants to be arrested in this case, get over here on the right. Anybody who doesn't want to get arrested, get over here on the left. And those people who wanted to get arrested got over on that plate. Later on, they went to Southland Christian Church, and there was a lot of commotion there and disruption in the church. And the police chief himself was held by the protesters who were angry and wanting to get things changed with the police, but they were voicing their anger. They held Chief Weathers and made him divert off in the grass to get out of their way. And we've got all this on video. Finally, that night, they want to lay down in front of the police station, which is okay. They said that's an easy thing to do. There's no harm. We're going to lay down for 8 minutes. Well, the police said, don't do it inside this barricade. The barricade was out and around the police station. Don't do it in front of the barricade. Go out on the sidewalks and do it. You can do that. You could do it in the street area, but don't do it inside this barricade. And they did anyway. And they kicked the barricade down. They cut the barricade down and they went in. And some people just laid on the ground, just passive, and the police had to carry them out. And this is all on document, all videoed by both the protesters and the others. Some people stood up and walked out, and all those people were taken back into the back of the police station, and every single one of those people either pled guilty or got diversion. So no, I didn't dismiss cases when they were pending, and I disagree with that, because other people in the country dismissed them because it was wrong. This wasn't wrong. This was a desire to be arrested. And so I said, okay, we're going to be fair. And we had young people who, I mean, one young lady goes to law school or she wants to go to law school, and she went through diversion in our office. African-American, by the way, I do remember her, but there's no record of it, but she went through diversion. And I didn't fight that at all. I wanted her to go through, if it's a learning experience, fine, but I don't think that should be on the record forever. And so we did that. One of the ladies who tried to incite a riot pled guilty to inciting a riot, trying to incite a riot. Correct, Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis was the lawyer for her and did a very good job in the case. And another person is still pending trial. And I'm not going to comment about those facts of those cases. But yes, I did not dismiss any cases for that.
Thank you. Angela, do you have anything to say on this subject?
There's just that, you know, I believe in everyone's constitutional right to protest. I would set up an interesting defense based on what Mr. Roberts has told us, but you know, I was there at Southland. I saw a lot of things, and you know, if we're talking about learning experiences, I'm curious of whether everyone couldn't have had that learning experience, because our constitutional right to protest is our most cherished right. Our right to free speech is something that we should protect at all costs. And Lexington is one that did well overall and has always done well. Even when we were talking about the removal of the statues, that's how I ended up on MSNBC talking about, you know, how congenial we were, because that's Lexington. But this is a situation where, again, we need to have a broader, more open mind and listen to people in the community, because ultimately the county attorney represents the citizens of Fayette County. And there were several people who should be and who are well respected in this community who could have explained and had conversations. And I don't know, maybe they did with Mr. Roberts and he just decided not to listen. But when it's something like this, when it is a true hardcore value of not just people, but you know, our country, we do need to treat that differently. We don't just need to treat it like another charge, because this is something that everyone could have learned from, and it could have been such a different experience, bad and good. But you know, even with protesters, if there was a need to arrest, it could have been a very different experience for everyone. And I'm kind of saddened that, you know, there are still cases going on 2 years later, because I actually just find that ridiculous when the country has certainly taken a position and understanding of what this really meant and the impact that it had on cities and the judicial system and the police system. I think they got the broader message of what these protests were about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.